everyone, it's Katrina. The Freemasons. The Freemasons are the oldest known fraternal order in the world. They came about during the Middle Ages when a group of skilled builders decided to form a guild. The disappointing truth is that, according to historians, there wasn't anything mystical about the Freemasons. They weren't even really a true secret society. Sure, they had secret passwords and secret rituals, but they were more of a union of skilled workers than a secret cult bent on world domination. Historian Margaret Jacob at the University of California said the original guild had 3 distinct stages. A person could join as an apprentice, then they turned into a fellow craft, and becoming a master mason was the final stage. These were the people who were masters in all different areas of building. They'd show up to a work site and oversee everyone working there. During the Middle Ages, the Freemasons were just people who built things with hammers and chisels. So why is there Freemason imagery everywhere? The Eye of Providence has been used by the group for hundreds of years to represent omnipotence. The most famous symbol of the Freemasons is the square and compasses, with a big G in the center. Nobody knows what the G means, although some have suggested it could stand for geometry. Others, however, think it stands for God, as the greatest architect of them all. There is also the beehive symbol that can be found all over the place, which is supposed to symbolize how Freemasons were busy as bees. Even though Freemasonry isn't a religion, it's been deemed heretical by the church. In the 19th century, the Vatican said that all Freemasons were part of the synagogue of Satan. The so-called secret society has been an enemy of the church since 1738, and it hasn't gotten any better with time. In 1938, the church doubled down on their hate of Freemasons. They said that any member of the Freemasons cannot be a member of the church. Maybe the Freemasons began as a guild of builders, but they grew into something bigger. In 1828, the first political third party in the United States formed, and they were called the Anti-Masonic Party. There were big fears that the group had become far too powerful in America. They were also growing more secretive, and conspiracy theories were starting to spread. Today, there are still conspiracy theories about the group in circulation. For example, people believe the Freemasons had contact with extraterrestrials. The aliens supposedly gave the guild members advanced knowledge of technology and building techniques, and ever since, the Freemasons have been protecting that knowledge. That's why they've been able to infiltrate every level of government. George Washington was a Freemason, and Benjamin Franklin was one of the founding members of the first Masonic Lodge in America. Henry Ford was also a Freemason, and so too was Winston Churchill and Franklin D. Roosevelt. And now for a very ancient, mysterious group. But first, it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Zach Bates for this super thanks and for supporting this channel. We're so glad you enjoy our content, and we appreciate you following us on our new Spotify podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for more videos like these, and check us out on Spotify. The 9 Unknown Men. The great Ashoka was the emperor of the Mauryan Empire in 270 BC. Legend has it that he formed a secret society dedicated to preserving some information he'd come into possession of. The information was apparently so jaw-dropping that the emperor knew it could never fall into the hands of the common man. And if humanity ever did learn the secret he'd acquired, chaos would surely envelop the world. Emperor Ashoka picked his 9 most competent advisors and charged them with keeping the secret for eternity. These 9 men were only to pass down the knowledge they were given to approved replacements prior to their death. In this way, the secret society would continue forever and always have 9 members. Only those 9 men would ever know the emperor's original secret, and their organization was called the 9 Unknown Men. If you're wondering what this secret is, you're not the only one. Nobody knows what the emperor has supposedly learned that was so dangerous to society. History tells us that Emperor Ashoka was a Buddhist. He won the Kalinga War, which saw the deaths of an estimated 250,000 men. And for a war that took place in India 2,200 years ago, that was a massive number of casualties. After the war was won, Ashoka was so traumatized by the death he witnessed that he committed himself to the pursuit of wisdom and peace. He founded the secret group not only to safeguard his secret, but to also safeguard the secrets of the world. He wanted the 9 men in the group to preserve all known knowledge of the cosmos, biology, alchemy, and more. Supposedly, the secret society is still active, or at least it was. In the 1960s, researchers Jacques Bergier and Louis Pauwels claimed the 9 Unknown Men was a real and very active organization, but there isn't any proof it's still active now, or even 60 years ago for that matter. There is a rumor that Pope Sylvester II traveled to India and met with the 9 Unknown Men prior to his death in 1003 AD. Pope Sylvester was astounded by what he learned from the society, but then he keeled over and died. None of his successors had any interest in cosmic knowledge, and the group was forgotten. But in India, there are said to be mystical books written by the 9 Unknown Men throughout the ages, books that contain the secrets of space travel, alien contact, and how to manipulate gravity. The White Lotus. The White Lotus Society was a secret group that came about during the days of Imperial China. It started as a religious movement teaching the ways of Buddhist tradition mixed with Taoism and indigenous practices. The religious ideals started with the Pure Land school of Buddhism in the 4th century AD, high up in the monasteries of Mount Lu. These Buddhist ideas then spread across China, becoming extremely popular by the 10th century. The White Lotus Society was officially formed as a religious group in the 12th century by Buddhist monks Xizhao. But from the beginning, Chinese authorities were suspicious. Buddhism was a fine thing to be a part of, but the government didn't like the new religious movement with all the different ideas mingled into one package. That changed though with the invasion of the Mongols. When Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty in the 13th century, the White Lotus Society became mainstream. It was even accepted by the Mongol rulers, so it reached a much bigger audience. But then the teachings started to change and things began to get really weird. Rather than teaching the original tenements of the Buddha, it turned into a salvation cult. The White Lotus Society began to teach that the Buddha would descend from heaven in the future and save mankind. He became a sort of Jesus figure, something that's always attracted people. During days of suffering and corruption, commoners prayed that Buddha would show up to save them. The members of the White Lotus Society rebelled against the government, causing the movement to be banned in 1308 AD. But instead of disappearing completely, the White Lotus Society went underground. They provided a religious backbone for what soon grew to be the Red Turban Rebellion. The rebellion was responsible for the collapse of the Yuan dynasty in 1368. The society then continued to function as a religious and political group until they started another rebellion over 400 years later in 1796. The White Lotus Rebellion was a failure, squashed by the Qing government, but it was still an important moment in Chinese history, resulting in any society calling themselves White Lotus being made illegal. In the 19th century, the group completely changed. Being banned by the government meant that they had to become a secret organization. The White Lotus slowly transformed into a Chinese organization you might be familiar with, the Triads. They didn't initially form to be a criminal organization. They formed to overthrow the Qing dynasty. It just so happened that in modern times, with no battlefield to fight on, the leaders resorted to criminal activity. Then, with time, they became one of the biggest criminal organizations in the world, and it all started almost 2,000 years ago with some Buddhist monks. The Templars. The Order of the Poor Knights of the Temple of Jerusalem was an organization founded after the First Crusade. Hugh de Payens was the founder, a French nobleman who teamed up with 8 companions in 1119 AD. They were a group of brave souls whose duty was to protect Christian pilgrims who traveled along the roads of Palestine to reach the Holy Land, and they were named after their original base on Temple Mount in Jerusalem. They weren't initially thought of as knights, but rather warrior monks. They did fight on the front lines of the Crusades, but they followed the lifestyle of Christian monks, swearing oaths of poverty and chastity. The order grew in power very quickly. They began to hold influence in Europe with feudal lords and kings. They gave generous donations where they could, and slowly began to acquire territory. Then, in 1139, Pope Innocent II gave them some special privileges. The Templars were exempted from certain laws that gave them more power and more money. At their height, the organization was insanely rich. They had property stretching all the way from Syria to Great Britain, and the profits that they made from their many businesses were used to fund all kinds of military expeditions. They were also some of the earliest bankers in the world. creating credit transfer services. They had so much money that their banking institutions held cash for popes and kings, but all of that cash attracted the attention of King Philip IV of France. In October of 1307, on Friday the 13th, the king destroyed the Templars and stole all their money. However, the Templars never truly died. They've been revived and imitated ever since. In 1737, Scottish Freemason Andrew Michael Ramsay wrote a historical book claiming that the Freemasons were an extension of the Templars. They made a huge comeback in the 19th century with the Order of the Solar Temple, and this is why so many people believe the Knights never died. They only changed names. Archaeological expert Graham Hancock wrote a book in 1992 claiming the Templars possessed the secrets of the ancient Masons. Hancock said the ancient Masons, the ones before the medieval Freemasons, were the original builders of Solomon's Temple and Temple Mount. Hancock also claimed the Templars were the guardians of the Ark of the Covenant. In 2009, Barbara Frail from the Vatican Secret Archives claimed the Templars had kept the Shroud of Turin, which was supposedly Jesus Christ's burial shroud. The rumors about the Templars are endless, and some even think they had ties with extraterrestrial visitors. If you were given the opportunity, would you join a secret society? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe. Now, on to the next. The Osirica. The Osirica may have been the first secret society of builders that eventually gave way to the Freemasons. Archaeological digs at an ancient Egyptian village near Deir el-Medina uncovered something interesting about the people who lived there. The inhabitants of the town had been studying the principles of architecture in a very rigid fashion. It seems that everyone in this town had been dedicating their lives to uncovering truths of geometry and other Masonic techniques. The original name of the place was Ta Set Mat, which translates to the place of truth. The village was established around the 16th century BC, and within 100 years, the town was producing the best craftsmen in Egypt. The builders who came from the place of truth were responsible for the baffling construction of the Valley of the Kings, and schools within the town taught new generations of builders in a vocational manner, just like what's done today in technical schools. This was one of the most advanced places in the world, 3,600 years ago. The skills being passed down in the village were the same skills protected by Freemasons in the Middle Ages. Controversial scholars who have spoken on the subject, like George G.M. James, believe that Ta Set Ma'at was home to a secret order. They were called the Osirica, and apparently, they could predate every other Masonic group that ever existed. The theory is that their skills were protected for thousands of years until they were passed on to the Europeans of the Masonic order. This would mean that the unparalleled building techniques of the Egyptians were kept safe by a secret society that formed almost 4,000 years before today. They likely didn't have an easy time keeping the techniques secret, which is how other civilizations were able to mimic the work of the Egyptians, but they still could have been the first branch of the Freemasons. The biggest question is, where did the Osirica get their knowledge? Was it passed down to them from a group of cosmic visitors? Did they figure it out on their own? Or could the answer be so shocking that nobody's even guessed it? The Illuminati. The very first official meeting of the Illuminati was allegedly held deep in a German forest on May 1st, 1776. A group of 5 Bavarian men laid out the rules that would govern the new secret order. They didn't call themselves the Illuminati, though. They were known back then as the Perfectibilists. The group had been inspired by ideas of the Enlightenment, in which education and science were believed superior to superstition and religion. The original members of the Illuminati wished to influence political decisions on a global scale. They wanted to disrupt institutions they found detrimental to society. And at the time, the 2 biggest players were the monarchy and the church. The Perfectibilists chose the owl of Minerva as their symbol, since Minerva was the ancient Roman goddess of wisdom. Then they got into contact with the Freemasons to recruit new members. At least that's what the legends say. The Illuminati were viewed by governments and religious institutions with the same malice that they viewed the Freemasons. But contrary to popular belief, these secret societies were anti-establishment. They wanted to destroy the royal grip on Europe and disintegrate the church. And that's why, in order to join the Illuminati, a person needed to have a massive amount of wealth. The group only wanted the rich and powerful who'd be able to make meaningful changes. Freemasons. By 1782, the group reportedly had 600 members. Many of them were wealthy German nobles, and a large number of them were also Freemasons. Then, just 2 years later, there were around 3,000 members, and at that point, the group was full of doctors, lawyers, and other intellectuals. The group disappeared, though, when the Duke of Bavaria outlawed secret societies in 1784. The Illuminati was supposedly disbanded, but did it really ever go away? That's a question that nobody seems able to answer. The myth is that the Illuminati has been surviving in the shadows ever since. They've allegedly succeeded in world domination, but they are so powerful and control so much that finding real evidence of them has proved impossible. Some people believe the Illuminati are even working with reptilian space beings to control humanity. Thanks for watching. What do you think is the truth behind secret societies? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a thumbs up for more. See you in the next one. Bye!